Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wacky Wednesday class. It's awesome to have everybody in the room. And I am going to spend some time going over some of the slides with you today. So, we are inside our digital interactive notebook. At any time, if you need to hit pause on this video, hit pause so you can get yourself in the right spot, or you can record any of the answers or check any of your answers. We are moving ahead to slide number 5. I just want to point out a couple things on slide number 5 to you. You have access to a video on the Constitutional Convention.
Previously,
And again, that comes from the Revolutionary War series, and that is good. Also, down here, you do have access to a PDF of a PowerPoint, which would explain to you about who some of these founding fathers are. You went ahead and did slide number 6 on your own with your at home work, and that brings us to slide number 7. Here's what we know. Okay, when the 56 delegates show up to Philadelphia, their main job is to want to fix the Articles of Confederation. That's why they're there. However, as they start to dive into the Articles of Confederation, they begin to realize that they're just going to have to get rid of those articles and come up with a brand new document. Remember, the Constitution is the rule book when it comes to government. So, what these founding fathers are doing is creating a rule book. So, when we go ahead and rules for government, so when we go ahead and we look at slide number 7, what happens is you have founding fathers from big states, small states, northern states, southern states. And as they get together inside that room in Philadelphia, what they need to do is produce some plans for what the new government should look like. So, two of the initial plans that become the most important plans inside the creation of the Constitution are the Virginia Plan and the New Jersey Plan. And as you can see on the worksheet here, and you can also click the links at the top, these plans were things that benefited either a big state like Virginia or a small state like New Jersey. And so the issue that the Virginia plan and the New Jersey plan dealt with first was, would power be based on population or would it be based on equal representation? Obviously, Virginia, being a more populous state, wanted it based on population. New Jersey, being a less populous state, wanted it based on equal representation, where everybody would just get one vote. They both wanted to have three branches of government. They both wanted to have a legislative, an executive, and a judicial branch. So when we go ahead and we start looking at the questions and answers on this slide, here's what we know. Okay, according to the Virginia plan. Okay, so according to the Virginia plan, the government should be made up of three branches: executive, judicial, and legislative. When you go ahead and you look at how many houses of Congress should the Virginia plan want it, they wanted two houses of Congress, with the lower house elected by the people and the second chosen by the first house. What are examples of states that would support the Virginia plan? Well, this is called the large state plan or the big state plan. So you have Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York are all examples of those. The New Jersey plan was different from the Virginia plan because, again, it talked about small states, and the small states would have the same amount of votes as larger states to take away those larger states' power. What states might support that New Jersey plan? Well, the smaller states like New Jersey, Delaware, and Connecticut would be in favor of that. And finally, why do you think the small states were against the Virginia plan? Because they just thought that those large states would always outvote them. So again, when we go ahead and we look at this slide, slide number 7, it is dealing with the Virginia and New Jersey plan. And what they end up coming up with is the magic C word. And that magic C word is compromise. And that brings us to slide number 9. And looking at slide number 9, what our Constitution basically becomes is a bundle of compromises. So at this time, I would hit stop on this video and I would click this link, and you guys should read the short article at that link. Okay, welcome back. We are going to go ahead and look at slide number 9 now. And as we look at slide number 9, here's what we need to know. There were compromises that made the Constitution. So looking at number 1, okay, what differences between the 13 states made compromises necessary? This is very important to understand. You had big states, you had small states, you had states that had slavery, you had states that didn't have slavery. And again, so when you see this, you got the North versus the South, the big versus the small. And in order for them to come to an agreement, they're both going to have to give a little to get something that they want. We know from our previous worksheet we were looking at that the small states objected to the Virginia plan because of the power being based on population inside the Virginia plan. We also know that the person who steps up to create the Great Compromise number 3 is Roger Sherman. Okay, what do we get out of the Great Compromise? We get our current government. So we get a two-house legislature, we get Senate, okay, and the Senate is equal representation, and we get the House of Representatives, which is based on population. As you can see on your screen right there, this word should say House of Representatives. I could fix that there. There you go, House of Reps. And with that, now we turn to some of the other issues, and number 5 addresses who do we count as population. As you can imagine, the South would want to count the slaves, the North would not want the South to count the slaves. So what this North and the northern and southern states end up doing is coming up with something called the 3/5 compromise, where a slave would count as 3/5 a person. So, for example, in number 5, if Virginia has 500 slaves, that means those 500 slaves will count towards 300,000 of Virginia's population. The northern states, obviously, in number 6, argued against allowing slaves to be counted because, again, they said, listen, you being slave owners, consider slaves to be property. You do not consider them as citizens. So, because you do not consider them as citizens, you should not be able to count them as a citizen. So, again, that was the argument of the North. What might have happened, number 7, if the opponents of slavery insisted on abolishing it at this time? Everybody would have walked away, especially the southern states from Philadelphia, and we would not have had a new government. So, again, that was almost a hush hush compromise where we would push off. They decided we, being the founding fathers, would push off the issue of slavery to future generations. How many states had abolished slavery during the founding area era? Let's go back and look at your worksheet on that one. Just make sure we got the right thing here. That the question that you're asked is actually when did the Congress finally abolish slave trade in the United States? And we know that that answer is 1808, as you can see there on your screen. And then what do you think what do you think made the Constitution a stronger government than the Articles of Confederation? That's really up to you how you decide to answer that question. But again, if you remember, one of the main things we talked about that the article struggled with was the ability to make adjustments and changes. Because it was so difficult to enforce a law, it was so difficult to create a law. So as you can see, this Constitution already is getting compromises done. And that's a huge, huge thing. So that is the info that you need for today. The last thing that I would recommend that you go ahead and do is you go back over to your Google Classroom. And at this moment, you should be done with slides 2 through 4, 5 and 6, and 7, 8, 9. And you're going to want to click turned in on all three of those to get them off your to do list. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday. Again, reach out if you have any questions, and I look forward to seeing you in class either Thursday or Friday. Have a great day.